Welcome to this episode of the Superyacht Laundry podcast. Today, we are going to be talking to Stacey Miller, who is, how's the best way to describe it? An expert in alcohol and substances, but she's not a
Yeah,
mixologist.
awareness. Awareness. People always say to me, "What's your area of expertise?" And I'm like, drugs, and then I'm like, awareness.
Oh no, it's like I was saying, so your expertise is like alcohol, it could be alcohol, but
Drugs.
you're not a mixologist. It's really
No, no. Well,
the science behind
yeah.
uh the substance itself. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm very
Thank you for
intrigued.
having me.
I am a wine drinker for sure these days, although I
Me too.
have dipped into some tequila recently. That's only
Yeah.
because I hope, I don't know, urban legend, that the hangovers aren't quite so bad because I'm like getting
Mm,
old. My hangovers are absolutely horrendous, and I don't have to
yeah.
drink anything.
But,
3
yeah.
glasses, and then apparently I get a hangover like I'd been on a bender for 2 days.
Yeah. You're drinking too
Boo!
late. That's what that is.
It's just too, being a woman. Boo. Anyway, let's not
It's
digress.
hard.
So yeah, how, like, where? Give us the backstory. Who
How
is
did I start
Stacey
getting into
Miller?
the world? Yeah, it's an interesting one because people are always like, "How on earth did you become an expert in sort of like drugs training and all the rest of it?" And you never. It's never because you've normally read a book or whatever. It's not a bit more intrinsic than that. And hopefully we'll talk about that a bit later in terms of like what helps people is finding out that intrinsic, like Lynn's alluded to it, like about purpose. What's your purpose? And I just think, yeah, growing up, like my mum and dad weren't too bad, but everyone else was like, alcoholic, drug user. I got actively encouraged to, take drugs, sell drugs, have lots of fights. Like it was carnage really, lots of exploitation, criminal exploitation, sexual exploitation, drugs in the family, drugs with friends that overdosed, trying to revive friends when they've like, taken too many pills, like a lot of lived experience basically. And so then when I basically went downhill, probably when I was at school, so a lot of people have their moments where they're not probably doing well as they could do. And mine was definitely probably quite early. I was probably like sort of year 10, year 11 age.
Well,
So
then you
failed
get
school.
introduced, yeah, but you get the introduction. So obviously
Mm,
not. I don't know whether it's in
mm,
all countries, but the introduction, or you start to get involved with, okay, generally starts with alcohol.
yeah.
It's that 14 to something, like
It
13,
it
14,
was when
especially
we were at
obviously.
school.
Yeah.
It's a bit later. It's a bit later now. But definitely like we're about the same age, aren't we? I'm 44. And definitely when I was at school it was 13, 14.
There's no ID
Whereas
though,
young
was
people now,
there? The corner
it's
shop
yeah.
didn't ID, like the guy behind the
No,
counter. If you
no.
looked, I don't know. It sounds really sinister now if you think about it, like girls sticking on the skirt
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
trying to get
it's
the
awful.
guy from the shop to give her a bottle of white lightning.
Yeah.
Then it was completely,
Yeah.
in my day. Oh, yeah, in my day, it makes me feel like I'm about a million years old. Um, there
Yeah.
was certain bars and clubs that they let us in. We were 14, 15 years
Oh,
old.
yeah. Yeah. Even my own mum used to pick me up from a bar on Friday nights, and we used to just scrap, girls scrapping. You don't see teenage girls like scrapping now, but yeah, we used to fight because we were in their territory and it was carnage really when I think about it. But like we say, like weren't any phones, there wasn't like evidence and stuff like that. There was no like good drug education at schools either. Whereas nowadays,
Mm.
like if you speak to a crew that are like in their 20s, they probably had quite an all right drugs lesson at school. So they've had some sort of awareness about it. Whereas mine was a police officer just telling us, take drugs, you die and we'll arrest you. And that was it. So that made us become quite secretive, which
Mm.
is it doesn't work, so I think having all that experience, and then I had quite a few bad drug experiences myself, and then I like essentially kind of got clean, if you like, and when I was about 16, and I just like my personality changed. I became really ambitious, went to university, but then my problems had become with alcohol because I was a workaholic, couldn't switch off. So then I would drink a bottle of wine, maybe two, to pass out because I couldn't relax. And then then I got into I was like a drugs counselor in a school for a bit, managed an alcohol project, and then I realised that actually alcohol really messes up your sleep. It messes up your REM stage of sleep, which you need to process shit from your day. But I didn't know that, I only knew that because of my job. So I just thought there's so many things that I think could be act as really good intervention with education, training, staff training, just to, give people knowledge and the facts, and then hopefully they will make better choices. They might even want to be completely sober, but they might not. They just might have more awareness of coping strategies or whatever.
Well, I mean, we are in an age of information. So going back to like when
Mm,
we were kids, alcoholism, if you're talking about in the 80s, early 90s, lots of very highly functional alcoholics. Even alcoholic behavior was just really just accepted,
very,
kind of.
very
It
normal. Yeah.
wasn't stigmatized anywhere near as much as it is now. And I think we
No.
have gone through a massive learning curve with obviously the abuse to the individual, but the ripple effect it has on families and everything else. So,
100%.
society has changed immensely. My own father was an alcoholic, and I lost him in 2005.
Oh, wow.
So he went through different types of rehab, all sorts of
Mm,
things, but before, I mean, in rehab, it was really rare that you even heard anybody go to rehab for alcohol unless
mm.
you were Elton John, or do you know what I mean? Unless
Yeah.
you had a load of money, because that service just
Yeah.
didn't really exist.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a different, like, when you say a different, it was a different time. It was accepted. We were going to bars and pubs loads more than we ever
Mm,
do now. But it is the drug that's accepted, out of all of
yeah.
them. It's like
Yeah.
when they say pick your poison.
Yeah.
But also it's one of the drugs that has been accepted and used since
Yeah. It's
created.
interesting with the alcohol because alcohol use has gone slightly down, which is great. But then if you look at like ketamine use, nicotine use, that's on the increase with young adults, so there's always something going on.
Well, this is, it goes into human nature. Have we all always are we as humans predisposed to substances? With
I,
consciousness and awareness, we've always looked for something to kind of take the edge off and sedate,
yeah,
because the
it's an
world is a
emotional regulation.
terrifying place. If I lived in the medieval period, I would have been caning the mead or whatever, because life would have been pretty grim, you know?
Yeah,
So have
it's
we
it's it's
always?
it's instant gratification. Like if you feel a bit of pain, whether that's like physical pain, stress, frustration with a colleague, you don't want to think, oh well, if I get a really good sleep tonight and do a bit of breath work for bed, I'll deal with it. Because that's like a bit of a long term ish solution, even though it's not that long term, but it's longer term than saying, actually, I'll have a bottle of wine and have a couple of fags and that'll sort me right out. You're looking for that short term reward because it's just easier and it gives you more dopamine and then you want more of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes total sense.
But you like going back to times like in somebody was saying about EastEnders. Back in the day it was like, let's go to the Vic for a drink. It's stressful. To the Vic for a drink.
Yes.
You're sad.
Yeah.
Go to the Vic for a drink. And all
Yeah.
of them were the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coronation Street. They all had
Yeah.
the pub at the hub of. So subliminally we were all told to just go to the pub and have a
Oh,
drink
100% in
and you'll
England.
be all right,
Yeah.
you know. But
Yeah.
I love the story of the monkeys that lick caterpillars. That's my favorite
What?
story.
What? Go on,
You
tell
know,
me
I
about
mean,
this.
they're like, you've got to check it out. I'm pretty sure you can still find the video on YouTube. But
Right.
basically, it's the story like relating to evolution. Have humans always meant to find a way to get leathered type thing? Because I think
Yeah.
there's some other animals that kind of eat fruit and stuff like that. But basically, it leads into like with that like passing on knowledge. There's a bunch of monkeys that basically live off coconuts, and then they realized one monkey just decided to wash the coconut in the sea to get rid of this to get rid of the sand because it's falling in the sand, and then it's
Right.
easier to eat the coconut. But there's also a version about monkeys that lick caterpillars, if they eat this caterpillar, it's like insanely poisonous. But if they just lick it, they get high. And then they're
Oh,
just
right, okay.
all off
Wouldn't
their
surprise me.
face, hanging around in a tree. So, like, if you can trace it
Loving
back,
life.
no, but if you can trace it back to the monkeys, which apparently, back in our, pre-human history, we
Yeah,
probably came
it
from.
wouldn't surprise me, Cherise.
Then there
Yeah,
is that psychological, like there is, we want a poison in a way to release,
yeah,
um, to kind of release these stresses and stuff like that. Because, like you said, nobody was talking about
100%.
deep breathing, go for a run. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like nobody was
I
talking
mean,
about these
I
things.
teach this stuff and I do practice what I preach. I do loads of like breath work, all that sort of stuff. But I still love a glass of wine every night. Do you know what I mean? And everyone's like, oh, you like a glass of wine? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I'm very aware of it. And I like a fag with it as well, which is even worse. But, that's just
Yeah.
my fag and my drink every night. And people are like, oh, are you justifying it? Because it is a fine line of when are you a functioning drinker, it's very, I used to manage an alcohol project for 7 years. So I've like studied it, teach it, done every campaign under the sun. It's an interesting topic. And then alcohol, drugs together, even more interesting.
So would you say that so your first opportunity to work in that sphere, was it coming out of recovery yourself, or did it kind of all end up?
Um, Not
How did you
really.
end up doing it?
I don't think I realised I had really an issue as such because, like you hear of people having an issue and they hit rock bottom. Well, I never really did. Okay, yes, I probably almost overdosed a few times, but in my head, that was not rock bottom. In my head, rock bottom is like when you go to prison, no one wants to speak to you, you've lost your house. That was my rock bottom, or
It's
my
train
version of it.
spotting,
Anyway,
basically. You have to hit rock
yeah.
bottom. It has to be a scene of
Which is
train
not true.
spotting.
Yeah, not true at all. No, I did. So I did criminology psychology degree, and as a part of that, we had to do about drugs and crime. And I thought, oh, this is fascinating. And then when I did my dissertation, I did a loads of voluntary work, working in street services, working with the homeless, working in needle exchange projects. And I met a guy that was in recovery, and I thought, oh, he's really interesting. And I did like a case story for my dissertation on him and thought, wow, this is so interesting. And because I'd experienced a lot growing up with my family, I thought, oh, maybe I'll get a job in this. And that's what I did. I'd worked with kids in school to prevent drug problems, which is still my thing now. I prevent because I just think once you're in crisis, it's hard work. So let's prevent it in the first place.
What do you think like, just to go off tangent, like the success, once you've got a problem, how
Yeah,
hard is it to get out? Because, like, obviously I've seen it
it's quite
firsthand.
hard.
Like my dad
It's
could
hard.
not get out with
It's
all the
really,
love,
is it done, and it doesn't
support,
happen overnight. It doesn't
to
happen overnight.
couldn't.
Yeah, if I'm really honest, I do think once you get to that stage, then it's hard because not only is it an addiction, it's a habit, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like when I think about my wine and my fag every night, like one of the reasons why I enjoy it and I just think, oh, it's just one drink, still justifying, but it's more of a habit because I'm so used to straight after work. I want my little half an hour to myself,
Yeah.
on my own without any phones or anyone near me. Um, but yeah, I do think that addiction, it doesn't just happen overnight. When I think about I've got like a really chaotic brother at the moment, and it's been so gradual, but he will never sort himself out, sadly. I don't think he will, because he's just so used to it being really
Well,
normal. And my mum and dad say it's very normal.
it becomes a lifestyle, though, doesn't it? All of their friends,
Yeah,
all the people that they know are associated
yeah,
with the lifestyle that they led, they're living right then, which,
yeah,
obviously everybody says surround yourself with the people that you aspire to, the person you aspire to be. But if you're
yeah.
surrounded by people that just
Or surrounded by
validate,
no one. Yeah. Or surrounded
yeah,
by no one, because
yeah,
it can be very isolating when you get to that point. Like my own brother doesn't have any friends. Like he doesn't have anything really. So for me to go, you should be hanging around with people that really inspire you. He looks at me like I'm absolutely mental. Like, what are you talking about? So it's about making people's goals very achievable to them. So when I used to be a drugs recovery worker, I used to get incredibly infuriated with my clients because I'd be like, right, these are your goals, like go for it, sort it out, because I'm quite cut and dry like that. But for them, just making the appointment with me, not getting angry at me, was like gold to them. But I'm wanting them to get off alcohol and heroin. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, why have you not done that yet? And I think that's really important when you look at anyone that's involved in drugs and alcohol. It's
Yeah.
about making any kind of goals really attainable to them, whether it's delaying their first drink by half an hour, whether it's maybe having a couple of days where they try a beer and not, I don't know, vodka or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's about
Yeah.
playing around with stuff, because what works for you might not work for me. And it's very, very individualistic.
So you got into, well, obviously, crime and substance abuse a lot of the time. We're hand in hand. You're like, go hardcore. No fluffy subjects for me. I'm just gonna
Yeah, no.
go full
Yeah, and it's
bore.
mad because I didn't think of it like that. I just saw it as I did like a leisure and tourism thing at college, because I wanted to be like a travel rep and Magaluf getting past. Thought that
I know
looks
a lot of
loads
people
of
that did
fun.
that.
I know. I thought that sounds like so much fun. And then at the
You
time, I
could
was
have
watching
developed
like
being a
Cracker.
counsellor at the same time in Magaluf, not knowing. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I know.
Selling the
Probably could make
shop.
a lot. I watched. Do you remember Cracker with Robbie Coltrane? I
Yes.
used to watch that a lot, and I thought, oh yeah, I want to be like a detective. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
funnily enough, I have done some private detective work. I've been a private
Yeah.
detective before. I know, bit random. For some reason, it didn't quite work for me because I couldn't fit in enough. You've got to be like really non-detectable because just following people and all that jazz. But anyway, that's another story. But I thought, yeah, I'll do criminology because it just started to become a bit cool. And then I learned it was fascinating. And that's when I stopped taking all drugs and I became an alcoholic, but I stopped taking drugs, which meant my mind was a bit clearer, even though I was obviously smashing a couple of bottles every night to fall asleep.
Yeah.
It was better than taking drugs all weekend and not sleeping at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's different type. Like I've known. I lived in New Zealand for a while, so I lived with hippies. So they were all like holistic, eat organic, but smoke weed all day. So do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And
Like
they
they
lose.
projected this
Yeah.
like holier than now, don't really drink, eating everything that's grown out of the garden. But I'm going to
Yeah.
sedate myself all day with marijuana. I'm going to have a bong in the
Mm.
morning.
Yeah. And they used to really like their legal highs when they were about as well, which was about 20 years ago. They had a massive issue with legal highs because I was in New Zealand when they came about. So yeah, there's always something, like you say. And weed, yeah. So it's funny enough, someone this morning said to me, like, what's the worst drug? And I was like, oh God, like it really does depend on what you're looking at, because people always think, oh, weed's a plant or whatever. And you think, well, there's loads of drugs that are plants, like actually drugs are either synthetic or they're plants, so
Well,
cocaine's a plant.
vodka was a potato
Yeah.
at some point. So it's like a vegetable.
Weed is
I
like
would eat five a day.
awful. Weed's awful for your mental health, like really bad. And also I'm thinking about crew. So like I went to Antibes in France, stayed in a crew house for a few weeks, just wanted to get
Ooh.
really amongst it. And people were quite into THC vapes because they didn't smell as much as weed. It looks like a vape, so you can walk down the street. And it's their way again of switching off. And it's not as potent, as in like doesn't get you like really sort of like, if you smoke weed, your eyes bloodshot. It makes you still quite focused. It's got like quite high level THC in it, which makes you more sort of like not so sleepy, basically.
But
So
then it doesn't last as long either, so they can get up and function at work the
yeah,
next day, I
yeah.
imagine.
But actually, if you got drug tested, weed stays in your system for up to a month. You know, but then on the flip side, you've got stuff like coke that stays in your system for three days. So then you're thinking, oh, well, I'll just take coke then, shall I? Because if my boss needs to drug test me, it'll be out the system by the time we get round to getting the drug tested. Do you know what I mean?
It is tricky. What did you think to on Teams? So, like, where's like, so obviously you've
Loved
been
NT.
working on land with all of these
Mm.
very incredible
Yeah.
initiatives and trying to help people. Where the hell did yachting come into your sphere?
Oh, it was just mad. I think I made a decision about maybe a year ago that I wouldn't have a family, and that's mainly because my brother and his partner are very chaotic drug users. So I have their daughter a lot. She's 5. And I thought, oh, if I have a kid, like this kid's not going to have the life that she deserves because my parents already helped a lot with her. And I just thought maybe it's just not meant to be. And I'm 44 now. And then obviously when you then realise that that family thing is not going to happen, I mean, it's weird. I have to say have real mixed weird feelings about it. But on the plus side, you think, well, I can do whatever I want. What do I want to do? And I love traveling. I've been to 50, I think 56 countries now. Like, I love it. I travel all the time. And because I'm self-employed, I can work online. I live on my own. So I have a partner, but I'm like, you're not living with me permanently because I want to rent my flat out, go away, pay for my trips. And so a friend of mine said, oh, you want to look into the yachting world. So I had a look at the hostess work briefly. Went to France because I thought I need to just figure out this industry and see if it's for me and see if it's welcoming, see if like what the appetite is for me either doing crew work or doing my training, which is what I do at home on the drug stuff. And everyone was like, no brainer. Crew training on substance use, it'd be great. So then I was like, right, then so because I was staying in a crew house, I thought these guys are like my constant focus groups.
Hmm.
So, oh, and I was like their agony aunt, to be honest. Like, I had so many
Yay,
of them
living
telling me,
therapist. You'll be getting all the
yeah,
stories. I run away from
yeah.
home. Uh,
I know, but you know what? I loved it. I loved it because it opened my eyes to seeing what it's like. It's like the alcohol thing. I thought, Gen Z's, mate, they don't drink. Oh my God, they did. But then it was interesting because the nationalities did vary slightly, you know?
mm,
So I think that was super interesting. There was even they were talking to me about cocaine, the sexual assault, being spiked, that all happened while I was there. I mean, I went out. I mean, I'm an after work kind of drink girl. Do you know what I mean? I'm in bed by 9. Do you know what I mean? But I thought, right, Friday nights, I need to get out and just network and see what the crack is. Do you know what I mean? Like go out. And I had people like pulling my hair, like guys pull my hair for attention, people blatantly trying to suss out whether I was a bit vulnerable. Do you know what I mean? I get that vibe because I have in other jobs, I have worked with perpetrators of sexual abuse and perpetrators of child abuse, domestic abuse, all of it. I've worked with perpetrators. So I know a little bit how they roll. Do you know what I mean? And they're really trying to suss out how vulnerable you are. And I'm thinking, God, there is a real need here for some work around being safe, the spike
yeah.
awareness stuff. Looking
Well,
out for colleagues. When does it become a problem? Do you know what I mean? It's not
yeah.
like, I mean, abstinence works for some people, but what the first stage is normally harm reduction. How can we reduce your harm? When you go on leave next week for 2 weeks, you're going home, you're going to go to some festivals. Yeah, you're going to want to go hard. You're going to want to blow off steam. But actually, how can we minimise the risk so when you do go back on your boat, you're not going to be a sketchy mess? Because there are lots of lovely practical tips to help people to minimise their risk to themselves and others.
Yeah. On TV's, obviously that's where I started my journey.
Is it?
A girl
Um,
was raped while I was there. I mean, on TV,
Really?
I'd like to think on TV is safer. They've got loads more cameras. It's a lot cleaner. It's lovely.
Yeah,
When I
yeah, it was
went
nice.
there, it was obviously also arriving in kind of really early in the year, so the weather's miserable. It can be quite a dark place.
Yeah.
But there was a period of time that dock walkers were told not to wear skirts and polos because there was guys worked out that obviously you were traveling alone, you were looking for a job, so they were just trying to
Mm,
get you kind of thing. So
okay.
it's always been a bit of a you've got to be a girl with street smarts, I would say, because
Absolutely. Minimum. Yeah.
it can be quite a dangerous location. Like
Yeah,
hanging
I
out in
got that.
groups.
I mean, I only went out on the Friday nights because I thought I've got to go out and experience this. And I could see that. I walked around a corner and there was a girl that I knew that was getting in with this other guy that was in my room, and she's just openly taking cocaine on the street. And I'm like, wow, and then the next day he's like, oh my God, Stacey, I've just found out she's taking cocaine with this captain. And I'm like, what? Yeah, it was, I
That
got
below
told
deck.
some mad stuff. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I do worry about the below deck phenomenon.
Yeah,
And how wild you
I
can
know.
be. I mean, again, kids, well, kids, young people are young people. This is the time to mess up. But I think, why, especially this is a great time to look at it. And like I said, there's more information about the different types of poisons there are out there. You have to
Hmm.
make more educated, informed decisions, whether
Yeah,
that's just your general safety in that moment or long
yeah,
term being, like you said, completely sketchy when you go back to the boat and losing your job. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And one of the
Yeah,
things
'cause
that
when you go back, you think, yeah, I'm going to go back and be really high performance. I'm just going to be like absolutely on my shit. But actually, if you've been caning at a festival and you've not been sleeping, like you're going to be exhausted and you're not going to be on your shit. So how about you don't mix your drugs that weekend? How about you make sure that you eat before you get fucked up? Do you know what I mean? It's all those things that, yes, when you go back to work, you're probably not going to be 100%, but instead of being that 50% that you were going to be, you're now 80. Do you know what I mean? Like it's about making practical changes because this is never going to go away. Do you know what I mean? It's not. But actually giving people the tools to make good choices, it's something that can be very effective.
there is, like you said, with the yachty world, um, it's that, like, obviously we spoke a bit before we got started, it's a holiday destination.
Yeah.
We are working in holiday destinations, so everybody wants to go
Yeah,
out and have a
thumbs
good
out.
time. The guests want to go out, have a good time. Then you're going to be, guests get off. You've got 3 days in Ibiza. What are
Wow.
you going to
Wonder what you're going to
do?
do there.
What are you going to do? You can't be, well, because also the reason why you want to do the job is because you want to travel and maybe get to some
Yeah,
parts.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? And you've got a few
Mm,
days. So, you do want to experience these places, but it is that the euphoria of getting off because you've just worked really, really hard for like 2 weeks.
mm,
Then you're
yeah,
in a brand new location. So it's all exciting. So you're all hemped up. You're like, yeah, and it kind of feels like you're on holiday. You're actually
yeah.
running
You've got the
around.
money. You've got the
You've got
money to
money,
go
you
to
haven't
your
spent any
expensive
money.
clubs.
Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? So it is the perfect storm
it can
of
be, yeah.
it can be the perfect storm for lots of different factors. And what I've found with doing Yacht Pearls of Wisdom and the podcast, and obviously talking to lots of women, there's still a lot of things we can do to stop the catastrophic things happening.
Mm,
And obviously
yeah,
you talked about drink spiking. Drink spiking has always been a thing. We've just done our survey. Every marina that holds super yachts on the planet got flagged for drink spiking.
really.
So
That's
there
interesting.
isn't there isn't a place where it doesn't happen, as far as I'm
Oh, no.
aware. In the research that I've done, so we're only doing really big marinas that can cope with proper super yachts.
Yeah, can't
It's
wait to
happened
hear
in
your
every single
research.
one, even Monaco.
Mm,
And the reason why I started the crew wellness bags in Monaco was to give out drink protectors. Because
nice.
people just assuming, because it's supposed to be and is advertised as one of the most safest places, you can wear your 250 grand
Yeah,
Rolex gold plated, diamond encrusted watch, you're not going to get attacked.
yeah.
But if you're a female that's slightly
Perfect.
vulnerable,
Perfect place, isn't it? I mean, if you put, I mean, again, I've just worked with a lot of perpetrators, so they've told me what they do. That they just they're going to go to places where people are just going to let themselves go. Especially like you're more likely to be a victim of crime when you're abroad than you are in your own country because of you let yourself guard down. You're like, okay, I'm abroad, that's fun. So you're not as vigilant. That's quite
actually, is it
interesting.
like, if you can give me from the eyes of a perpetrator, what are they looking for? Because obviously we talk all the time from
Vulnerability,
it's always like what women can do. Like we're not the ones perpetrating, but we're obsessed with
lack of
telling women how
boundaries,
to change their
vulnerability.
behavior.
lack of assertiveness, people please. There's all sorts. So in terms of like sort of sexual assault, drug, maybe spiking, obviously if you're hammered, then you're perfect, like for a perpetrator. But it's more like, because it doesn't always happen straight away, there could be some grooming involved in that. And it's looking at how vulnerable you are. So that could be how good you are with your boundaries. There might be a test, like I've seen it happen before, where someone has said something a bit inappropriate and they've seen if you shut it down, or if you laugh, or if you ignore it. If you shut it down, you're assertive, you're strong, you're quite confident, they'll leave you alone, for example. If you're like, hey, like really nervous, they think brilliant. Or if you agree with it, even better. So it's like these little things that they do to test you out, basically. They
Mm.
definitely don't like the stronger, opinionated more women because that's just scary. Why would they go for you? Because you're probably more likely to report them as well. You're more likely to fight back. So they're going for people that are vulnerable. So if you're a green crew, you're vulnerable because you're desperate to get that first job. You're desperate. So you are going to go. Maybe a captain says to you, and this is a true story. Something happened on some while I was there. This girl goes out to, she meets, chats this captain. She's there with a few friends, and he's like, "Would you want to come and have a look at the boat? Like, we're actually looking for a couple of stews at the moment." But that boat doesn't exist on marine traffic. So what the hell's going on there? Do you know what I mean? And it's just, yeah. And anyway, it was an ugly story, let's put it that way. And you just think these little things, you just got to be, like you said about being street smart, being a bit savvy and just having a bit of your wits about you, that not everyone is going to have your best intentions at heart, sadly. But then you also don't want to create a complete scaring, skeptical, but it's good to be aware.
It's tricky, and I like, like what you're saying about grooming, because no guy rapes starts with rape. Do you know what I mean? Rapists don't start with rape; they build
Yeah.
up to it.
Well, it's someone you know. You're more likely to be raped by someone you know than a stranger.
Yeah, so
More
it's
likely to be
kind of,
raped by a crew member.
yeah. So like it's the testing, like you said, see what you can get away with, and
Mm,
obviously, the survey results that will come out a little later on in the year that I've just conducted confirm all of that. Confirm all of that. Positions of power, like you said, especially green crew because they're desperate. That is less likely to happen
I'm
to you
desperate.
if you are a chief stew,
Yeah,
because you are more seasoned in the role. It's not impossible, but
yeah,
it is a lot harder. Well, more
yeah,
risky, I would say. Not harder. It's more
yeah,
risky for a perpetrator to
yeah.
have
And you're
on
not
the
going to
front.
go for risky because there's no point. Why go for risky when there's plenty of people that are quite easy targets? You know, it's like a power thing.
Yeah, I mean it's quite. It's perhaps something that I might look into because, like I said, it's that whole mentality trying to educate women on how not to be attacked. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
it's in your control that you can stop them from being,
yeah,
stop them from attacking you if you don't wear the skirt or don't get that drunk or all
yeah.
of those things. I don't.
Not
That
most crime
terminology
can be
really
prevented.
grates me because it
Yeah,
makes it feel like we're in control of whether we get attacked or not, and that is not the case.
no, no. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do to help your situation. Like, we said about what you can wear. You can wear what you like, but, do you want to attract the wrong type of attention? Again, you shouldn't have to be in a position like that. I know for me, I would never dress like in crazy outfits that are, like I like my raves, for example. And at the moment, rave culture encourages to wear almost like bondage stuff. And I think, God, if I wore that, like,
I never wanted to wear
just,
bondage stuff when I was in my 20s. Why am I going to want to wear it in this
yeah.
day? Blech.
No, but if you look now at like German raves and stuff like that, it's quite sexy, and you think fair play, but actually, do I want to put
Promote that.
myself in a risky situation where I'm going to have people that want to grope me? No, I don't. And sexual assault
Mm,
again is more on the increase at festivals. So yeah,
yay.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's quite. It's,
So positive.
well, it is, but like I said. I think there needs to be a real honest conversation about what women can control. And then,
Mm.
we take responsibility for that. If you are out and you are having a good time, there's a certain
Yeah.
element of self-responsibility,
Yeah, that and
isn't there?
looking out for your mates as well. I mean, I've had some situations happen to me with sexual assault, and yes, I didn't help the situation, but neither did my friends. My friends would actively encourage me to go off or whatever, and I'm like saying to them, I don't want to, and they're like, oh, you're all right. And you're thinking, what? And also thinking from an active bystander standpoint with the perpetrator's friends, because they don't all out just go out on their own and sit there and think, oh, who am I going to prey on? Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always work like that. And actually, there can be some lovely work from males that maybe have friends that are a bit of a dick that they can call out on. You know?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I want to delve into a bit more is how, while simultaneously educating women to make sure that they keep themselves as safe as they possibly can, but
Yeah.
also working out what men can do to maybe, like not necessarily confrontation, but call out and not make it so easy, you
Active
know.
bystander, they call that. Yeah, yeah. So there's been some work in London. The Mayor of London's done some campaign around the violence against women and girls, which is a bit of a priority from the government at the moment. And they're doing, they've had a few adverts go out to say, like, when a guy is like giving a girl a bit of shit or catcalling, his mates are like, mate, why'd you naked? It doesn't have to be like a stop. We need to evaluate this situation. You're being out of order. All it has to be, dude, you're being a dick. Wind it in,
Shut up. Just shut up.
Yeah, just
Embarrassing.
wind it in. Yeah, because actually your mate's more likely to probably listen to you as their friend than maybe someone like me who intervenes, because I sometimes do when I see shit like that. Because actually I'm then putting myself a little bit in danger there as well. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to think about that.
Thinking about the yacht environment, you could have a whole a whole entire crew that are active bystanders.
Oh, yeah. And 9 times out of 10, you do because you're thinking about yourself, which naturally you would. You're going to think, well, if I do anything here, one, I might then become the victim of this, or two, I might be pushed out. I might not
To
have a
lose my
job. So
job.
you just think, yeah, so you just think, and it is like 9 times out of 10, it is easier to just shut up and get on with it,
Well,
sadly.
I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, like what's going on with, reporting incidents and everything else. As a crew member, you might see something or an incident might happen on your boat, and you're like, that was absolutely effing horrific, but I've got a
Mm.
mortgage to pay. So what I'll do is I'm not going to get involved, but I am going to look for another job and then leave, so I don't sabotage my own finances on the way out. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
if you've got the energy to do it, because when you're working flat out, like the last thing you want to do when you've got a bit of time off is look for jobs. You know what I mean?
I
It's
quite
hard.
like that terminology, active bystander.
Yeah.
That's a really good, because that is literally what's happening on board. You've got active bystanders that
Mm.
are, for the reasons we do understand, are just not,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
to
I
be
get
honest,
it.
let's be honest, they're not sure how or what they can
Yeah,
do
you
to
might not even have
implement
the
that.
tools to do that. If I think about myself, like I know I probably would, but I know all the people I work in similar jobs to me, would they? No. Because a lot of people are very conflict avoidant as well.
Well, and also,
People
like
don't
you
like it.
said, the analogy you just gave, like, stop. This is outrageous on boats. So no, because it's all about
No.
trying. At the same time, you're all fixed on achieving a certain goal all together, and then obviously
Mm.
something else has happened. But obviously, you're all hyper focused on achieving this communal goal that the team have to get to. So when these
Yeah.
incidents occur, again, the psychology of the team is not really in the right way to deal with the incident itself. Do you know?
No,
It's
you've got other priorities. Yeah, you've got other priorities. You're thinking about basically what the guests need first, because they're the ones with the money needing not just a 5-star service, but you know, banging service, the best service you could do. So that really is the priority, not the other quite important stuff.
I think it's right. Like I said, I mean, being a woman myself, and I've had incidences in my past. If I think back to it, there was one that really scared me. I was 16 years old, and a guy that used to play cricket with my stepfather. When we like, so I went to see my stepfather. He was playing cricket. This guy was always around. He always used to talk, and then he'd buy me a drink at the clubhouse. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
obviously they'd let me
yeah,
drink at the clubhouse because my stepfather was there. My parents were there. And obviously,
yeah.
then we got talking. I was like, oh, I'm going out with my friends and we're going to this club and everything else. And he turned up. He turned up in the club. And I was like, right. And it was a club that was full of us, like
Mhm.
back in our day, all of the 16-year-olds ended up really in the same place because
Yeah,
I don't know if there was an unwritten rule with all of the different
yeah.
clubs. They're like,
I
you
went to
just stick
somewhere
all of
similar.
them together. It's less hassle for everybody else. Do you know what I mean? Like stick
Mm,
all the kids
yeah,
together and it's kind of like a creche. But he
yeah.
was so much older. I think he was like 30 or something. So he stuck out like
Mm,
a sore thumb and then came up to me like behind me at the bar. And I was just like,
weird.
ugh, what are you doing here?
I
My
love the
boyfriend was on the other side of the room and he's like, can I buy you a drink and everything else? And he's like, oh, you can cut
Oh
off and
my
give you a lift
God.
home and everything
Go hang
else.
out with your own age, you weirdo. Yeah.
But it's just so that whole situation came from just saying I was going out with my friends. You know
Yeah,
me.
so he's thinking, brilliant. All these young people in one go. I
But you
know where
think
I'm
of
going.
Well, no, but you think about communal areas. You're in a crew
Mm,
house, for example. You're all
mm,
chatting about where you fancy going that night. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
There's the distribution of what's going on with you is quite easy to get hold of. And then also everybody shares their details. Everybody's like for being friends on Facebook. So like where you used to be able to go to a bar if somebody was being a dick, you could just go leave the bar. And then as
yeah.
long as you got round the corner before
They,
they
they won't
came
be
out
able to
to
find
look
your
for you,
Instagram handle.
no. But no, but now they could track you down. They can track you
Yeah,
down on all of it. So like the
and people
harassment doesn't
do.
stop.
Yeah, if you look at stalking rates, massively high since social media was introduced.
So it's
And then
easy.
that could be an increase of awareness as well, because we report things more. But I do think it's the easiness of it.
Well, you can like some people that share their bedroom and all sorts of things on your whole floor plan of your
Location,
house.
yeah, your location, like Snapchat. I mean, we went ages ago now. I remember it had this feature on like location was just it was just enabled straight away. You didn't get like a notification say just to let you know, like you got to turn it on ghost mode if you don't want people to know where you are. And it literally will tell you that, like the number at the house where you're at, you know? It's just like that's not good. And then who have you got on your social media? It's probably not everyone that you've seen and met in person and who's a really good friend.
Mm. So let's hone in on um, the safety of women. From when you started, how has it like specifically drink spiking? Because we will be giving out drink protectors
Hmm.
again at this Monaco yacht show.
Yep.
Um, how have things changed? Like perhaps let's
Okay.
go. Let's do a
That's a good
decade.
question.
Go on. Let's go. It's like
Right.
what's changed?
I would say alcohol is still the most common thing to be spiked with. That's not changed. And that can be literally in terms of people just adding more alcohol to your drink because when you're drunk, your taste buds aren't as strong. So then you don't really know your limits and you're getting wasted that way. And that tends to be not that maliciously. That tends to be from sort of friends thinking it's fun. But from a drugs point of view, I think in the last 5 to 10 years, for me, I personally worry that drugs now have such a mix of stuff in them. So, especially in the English market, and it is happening sort of worldwide and in Europe, we're having a lot of sort of like fentanyl type things, nitazines, which are like what we call synthetic opioids. Now, if you've got that cut in a drug, and these things are happening right now, there and someone has bought that thinking it's ketamine to spike your drink, then but it's got some nitazines in, not only are you going to be vulnerable to the usual assault, sexual assault and stuff, but actually you could die because fentanyl is like, and nitazines, they are synthetic opioids and they are 50 plus times stronger than heroin. And if your body is used to not really taking drugs, then that increases your chance again of having a really bad experience because you have no tolerance, especially to opioids, because most people who take drugs don't take opioid type drugs. They don't take your heroin, they take more stimulant type drugs. So, and actually, when you look at what you're spiked with, it's not normally, any sort of cocaine, really. It's normally like ketamine because ketamine and alcohol can make you black out. It might be like roofies, which again just creates like a mental block and you don't remember,
Was it
but you're at quite drunk.
GHB? GHB?
GHB is a common one, more with the men who have sex communities,
Gay
more with
community.
that. And that's really dangerous. GHB, like you can go into a coma quite easily, especially mixed with alcohol. And I think a lot of these problems arise because alcohol and drugs together is just like a recipe for disaster, basically. You're not going to remember anything. You could come across really drunk, so your friends aren't quite aware. They might think, oh, she didn't eat tea. She's a lightweight anyway, when actually, you've got something really weird in your drink that's going to have a massive adverse effect on your health.
There's
So
no
I
change
would worry
for
about
them, is
contempt.
there? There's a lot.
No, no, I mean, no, and I think anyone can get spiked as well. I got spiked in Mexico on a holiday a few years ago, and bearing in mind, I'm teaching about this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I actually wasn't aware I was spiked until I come back home and I was teaching in a school and I was talking to kids about you're more likely to be a victim abroad. They were asking me about spike drinking, and then one kid's like, "Have you ever been spiked then?" And I was like, "Oh." And they were like, "Have you ever been a victim abroad? And what's it like when a drink's been spiked?" Because my drink did taste a bit weird. And I'm like, "Oh my God." And my mum's been spiked. My mum got spiked in her early 50s, and I know I've got a friend that got spiked and he actually got raped by a guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can happen. It is predominantly young women, but it can happen to anyone.
Well, I like it said, with the reason why I started the wellness bags in Monaco was because a whole
Mm,
bunch of women. So when I put out that alert that year while we were out and about and doing things,
mm, mm.
women were coming forward. It wasn't like they were even waiting to prey on the youngest or just the crew members. They
Yeah,
obviously just took an
yeah.
opportunity to spike as many as possible and then
Wow.
just see who got left
See
behind.
what happens.
Do you know what I mean? That's kind of a bit, I mean, that's quite scary, but and
That's-
the authorities were told nothing, radio silence, weren't going to talk about it,
No.
weren't going to say that even happened because obviously we don't want to ruin the image of what
Yeah.
they
And
want
will you be
to do.
believed? Because, not dissing the police completely, because police can be great, but if you look at sort of the history of how police deal with spiking, it's not normally positive. It is often, well, you're just really drunk. And then actually, if you are brave enough to take it forward, a lot of drugs get out your system within a couple of days.
Mm.
So by the time you've had a drug test, that drug's out your system. So then, like, how are you going to prove it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I got spiked in Barcelona once.
Because you're
Weird story, weird story. I got spiked. I was actually waiting for my husband, yeah, at the time.
really.
Yeah, no, we were
Wow.
in a hotel. So like I'll tell this story, it's quite funny. So husband's flying in. I was working on board and I got to the hotel first. So my boat was in Barcelona. I checked into the hotel. He was flying in. We would like messaging backwards and forwards, and anyway, made the decision that because obviously you want to keep things spicy in the beginning. We'd pretend that we
Yeah,
didn't know each
at
other.
the
I said,
beginning.
I'll wait in the bar and
Oh,
you can come in and try and woo me, like you did in the beginning,
I
kind of
like
thing.
it.
Um, so I was sitting in the bar, took my book down there, got ready, made sure I looked all fancy. So I went down to the bar, took my book, and I was waiting for he'd just landed, so it wasn't going to be taking too long for him to get to the hotel. And there was a guy, so there wasn't, I think there was like me, another guy, and then a couple, and we were in the bar, and then this guy just who looked like Sideshow Bob um The Simpsons, just kept
Okay.
trying to talk to me, just kept trying to talk to me. And he was like, "Can I get you a drink?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm fine. I was just got a drink in my champagne." And I was like, "Just no, just like," and he kept going on and on and on. And eventually I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Just, yeah, if you want to." Because he just obviously didn't think anything else of it. So anyway, he's chatting. My Tim comes in to the bar, sees that this guy's talking to me, and he sits on the other side of the room. And he was like, I was
I think it was
literally
part
like,
of the
"What are you
role play.
doing?" Tim was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, my eyes are like, "Help, help." Anyway, this guy keeps chatting, and then eventually I'm just like, "That guy's over there. He's on his own. Why don't we invite him over to talk, to get together as well?" It was a terrible moment, like really, really cringy. I was
Wow.
so mad at him. But anyway, obviously this guy, after talking with Tim at the same time, got bored, and he was like, anyway, um he was like, as he was leaving, he was like, if you get lonely, I'm in room, 5A. Just come and find me." And I was like, "Ugh." And then he left.
Mm.
And then obviously me and Tim carried on, and we were laughing and everything else. And I finished the drink that this guy got me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the loo." Went downstairs, to the toilets were downstairs, and I'm like, I can't feel my feet. Like,
Really?
I literally can't feel my feet. I feel like I'm on marshmallows. And I'm
Yeah.
like, not being anything, I've lived a bit. I know kind of what things feel like. And I was like, this is not. And I'd had 3 drinks, just 3. And I'm like,
Mm.
this doesn't
Mm.
feel right. Get back to
Yeah.
Tim, and I'm like, you need to take me back to the room. I just don't feel right. And then spent the next 2 hours throwing up, and then eventually passed out in bed and came back the next day.
Wow.
If Tim hadn't have been there, obviously I wouldn't have been there if he wasn't actually coming in. But do you know what I mean? He was
Yeah.
in the hotel,
Mm.
just waiting
Yeah.
in a hotel bar to just see who was traveling alone.
Yeah. Basically thinking, right, who's about, and him keep pressing to talk to you as well. It's
It's
like,
just like,
piss
oh.
off,
He was
you
like,
know?
he said he was a famous person that was involved in movies, and I checked him out, and like,
Oh my God. Well, that's a classic as well, isn't it? Because that's like a grooming thing again, because it gives you almost like credibility to talk to.
yeah. So what do you think the industry, like obviously you're just getting to know everybody, you've got
Yeah.
tons to offer. What do you think the priorities should be? High pressure
Mm.
working environment coupled with holiday
Hmm.
destinations and wanting to have a good
Hmm.
time. So hyper
Yeah.
vulnerability, I would say. And then obviously a
Yeah.
really strange work dynamic, which if
Yeah.
incidents occur during those situations is not going to help. So
Mm.
on first reflections, where do we start?
Where do we start? No, I'm joking. I just think it's been lovely to do this as an opportunity because I want to get one thing I've done in lots of jobs, is give people a voice on what I do. Because if you give people a voice on what you do, they'll engage with it better. And also then I also do a really good job because I'm not just doing what I think should be done. I'm actually being told by hosties or whatever, no, this is what happened to me or whatever. And because I need those stories really, like anonymous or whatever. So I want to give people a voice, if they're listening or watching this, what do you think I should do? I personally think I need to start off doing some training for crew around being safe. And maybe do like bite-sized training things, because like someone said to me the other day, she wanted to do some alcohol training. She's changing careers. She does work in yachting, but not as crew. Um, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do like a couple of days training." And I was like, "Oh, a couple of days? That's quite ambitious." I think start small, build it up, hopefully get some guest accreditation going as well. So then at least it'll be accredited, and it will be literally about what are the key substances out there, how to be safe, you know doing some case histories of like if people, because like rotation is quite common now, isn't it? When you do go home, yeah, let off steam. You are allowed to let off steam. But let's talk about how we can minimize that risk, not for only when you're at home, but also when you come back. because whatever happens at home, say if you get off your nut and you take loads of drugs at a festival, you could get sexually assaulted or whatever. Well, that's going to impact you when you go back to work in 2 weeks, because you're going to be consumed with that, but then you're going to be repressing your emotion because you ain't got time to think about that. But that emotion is going to come out at some point, so it's about trying to minimize that harm and getting a good relationship with people. I always say to people that are a bit wary of me or are a bit like, who are you? Do you know what I mean? And I expect there'll be many people, in this world that are thinking, well, we don't know you yet. We need to figure you out. Do you know what I mean? And so I just want to get a good relationship with people, find out what makes people tick. How can I help them? I think harm reduction, being safe is your number one priority. But people might say, actually, no, we want to be told about drug testing is really important. We want to be telling about, how actually it's important to be sober. It's whatever works, like I've done my job for 20 plus years and I've done every trick in the book. So it's about whatever works for that client. But harm reduction is normally your number one priority.
Well, also helping manage people that have got substance abuse. The crew
Mhm.
dynamic coming down from coming down from the top. Like as a captain, how do you manage crew morale, but crew, how if you can influence the way they blow off steam, do you know what I mean? And not in a kind
Yeah,
of controlling way because they're all grown adults, but there is
yeah.
ways I'm sure that they can influence it in a more positive way, but also then, in that position of seniority, also learn ways to talk to crew members about what's
Yeah,
going
and
on
being
with
open
them.
to, you don't have to be an expert. Managers always say to me, "Oh, I don't really know how to, talk to my young staff about this." And I'm like, "But you don't have to be an expert. Like, you're probably an expert in whatever your job is. You don't have to be an expert on drugs. You just got to be really open, like an open door policy. So if something is going on, you find out about it early."
Yeah.
Like early prevention, because if you don't get it or you haven't got the balls to do something about it early, it will get worse, and then that will have a massive ripple effect on everyone, in your guests, yourself, the boat, the owners, whatever. So it's about getting there early, sort it out.
No, I do. I think, but also a collective effort. There's a lot when it comes to this stuff, it's a lot is focused, especially the new stuff that's come through individual behavior. But like I
Mm,
was saying about women, it's always put on women how to try and stop yourself from being attacked, but a little bit
mm,
more guidance and emphasis on, how, we can stop people attacking, like
yeah.
kind of calling out bad behavior at the other
Yeah,
end.
everyone. It's
Like,
everyone's responsibility, isn't it? The worst thing you can do is put it on just one person or blame. Blame, it doesn't solve anything. It's
yeah,
about all working together.
yeah, but also if not wearing a short skirt stops you from getting raped, we would all be doing it. But it doesn't make any difference whether you wear
No.
one or
And
you
what
don't.
what do people rape? It's a power thing. It's not because, they're it's not even a lot to do with sex. It's about power and control. And same with spiking. It's about power and control.
Hmm. This has been
Mm.
really, really interesting, but I feel like we're just
Yeah.
getting started. I think,
Well, get
it
me
could
on
be,
another time once we get going.
I think, we could break it down into the separate
Mm.
entities. We can focus on, spiking, alcohol, then, I mean, cocaine is, I would probably say, rife within the
Yeah, for sure.
industry.
Yeah.
It's probably the most readily available
Mm.
in the industry. So being really frank and
Yeah.
honest about the cons of said substance, let alone losing your job, but all of the
Yeah.
nice things that come along um,
Mm.
with that. I mean, I know of a few people that have been fired because of it. So I think that would be a really interesting topic, as well as probably many more. So I am very excited about you coming into the industry and
Thank you.
bringing your expertise and starting to pin down some ways to support, educate, all at the same time around
Mm.
this, because it is one of the bigger things when it comes to crew welfare that isn't just female related as well.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be super helpful. I'm very excited.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But we shall stop it there, and then we'll have a powwow and work out what the next one's going to be. Very exciting, very, very
Love that.
exciting. We could
Love that.
potentially do short versions, so we'll pick
Mm,
each
I think so.
angle and then do like a little mini series,
Mm,
half hour at a time, just specifically on
yeah.
certain
I
things.
think it'd be really interesting to see, when you post this, to see what kind of things people talk about and say, actually, like, we want some more future ones. Like, what would you like us to talk about?
I think that would be really good. We'll put a poll out, but obviously, if you've listened to this episode and the snippets that have been put
Mm.
out on social media, let us know. What do you want to know? And I will ask Stacey, and she will give all of her wisdom and we will delve into it. So, if you've got specific questions, you want to cover anything in particular, we will do that. Ask Stacey anything. I'm just like, I'm putting you out there.
I don't mind. I just think I do have a lot of mad information in my head, so I'd like to share it because it keeps people well, safe, and living a good life.
Yeah. And also, like, I've said this many times on the podcast, I am old. I don't know what it's like right now on board. I'm not there, but I don't know. I
Mm.
can tell you what it was like when I was. So we need up to date information, feedback. What do you need to know? What's important to you, kids? We'll put this on TikTok as well.
Oh, okay. Not on TikTok, but
We'll
can't do
put
it
it on
all.
TikTok. I don't go on TikTok, but stuff gets put on TikTok,
Nah.
so we'll do that.
Thank
Thank you so much, Stacey, for joining us. We
you.
will expand on our talking points. If you've enjoyed this episode, there are more on the horizon, obviously with Stacey and other guests. But until next time, dear listener, take care.